Good evening. They are a visible presence in parks across the city. Homeless encampments are something city officials have been dealing with for several years, and today they announced a new strategy.
The city says removing them will not be a priority going forward. Rather, providing enhanced supports will to help people find shelter and stable housing. CTV's Beth McDonnell is live tonight with more on this. Beth.
Michelle, Nathan, the city says this shift in its approach to encampments is based on feedback from the public and the city's ombudsman. Instead of clearing homeless encampments, a new City of Toronto report recommends a housing-first, human rights-based approach.
The clearings is not a strategy that works. It removes people from one place and to go where?
This is what Clarence Square Park near Spadina and Front is like now. The city says with a lack of mental health care services, a lack of housing, and high rent costs, more people are struggling on the streets. The aim, by using more outreach workers and compassion, more people will find shelter and stable housing. But removing encampments will not be a priority.
There are situations where there's a safety concern, either for individuals who are in encampments, for example, because of fire, where the protocol may require that a notice is for removal, but that's laid out now.
The pressures on the shelter system are huge, a situation that led many new arrivals to stay in church basements last summer. Refugees now taking up about half the spaces.
What is desperately needed is a coordinated regional response to this issue and the establishment of a regional reception center, something that City Council has long asked for, as well as our community partners.
Two women here say outreach workers are trying and people are filling out the paperwork to move on, but securing a place is tough to finalize. They're not coming here to say, okay, today's moving day.
Yeah, or they never take you to see the place or give you a day to come and check it out if you want to.
The city says the gentle approach has been successful at Allen Gardens. Last July, there were 84 encampments, now just 9. But this outreach worker is disappointed.
The Grant Faulkner inquest years ago said that people need safe heat sources, but none of the protocol recommends any of that. So it mainly focuses on communicating clearly to people that they will be cleared if they don't kind of accept the shelter option.
And until the large overarching issues are addressed, more of the right housing and services are available, encampments will keep popping up. The report says the city will strive to give written notice when enforcement is required, and in most cases it will provide 72 hours notice. This report goes to the Economic Development Committee next week. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Beth McDonnell. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. Still ahead, where to find the money to keep the water running and traffic flowing. City councilors meet to tackle Toronto's growing infrastructure issues. CTV's Natalie Johnson will have more in minutes.
But first, a teenager is dead following a crash involving a mini bike.
It happened in a residential area in Vaughan, and that's where we find CTV's Mike Walker tonight. Mike.
Nathan, Michelle, police say the mini bike and vehicle collided at this intersection behind me, which is a four-way stop. The 24-year-old driver of the vehicle is now facing several charges. Viewer photos show a mini bike lying in the middle of the road in a Vaughan neighborhood after a deadly crash last night that claimed the life of a teen. Neighbors describe hearing a violent impact.
It was a big bang and then noise of something, scratching the street, like it was like something was tagging along with the car or something.
York Regional Police say around 10:45 p.m. a 16-year-old boy was riding a mini bike when he was struck and killed by a vehicle at this four-way stop at Martin Grove Road and Forest Drive.
A bike crumbled up, lying over there. There was a boy. Paramedics came. They were getting CPR over there. All the debris of the bike and the car were all the way up to the stop sign.
And the first thing I noticed was that mangled bike. I'm going, this is not good.
The teen was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries where he later died.
At this time, what we can see is that the vehicle and the mini bike collided with each other at the intersection. Again, in terms of the sequence of events leading up to that collision, we're still trying to get witness accounts to help us piece that together.
Witnesses tell CTV News the vehicle came to a stop by these mailboxes more than 150 meters from where they say the crash occurred. The driver, they say, was nowhere to be found.
Well, they had left the door open, so whoever was took off.
Officers arrested the driver near the scene. 24-year-old Harnor Chauhan has been charged with dangerous operation causing death, failure to stop after an accident causing death, and possession of a controlled substance.
He was not impaired at the time, but the possession of a controlled substance charge was a result of searching the vehicle and finding what we believe to be a controlled substance in the vehicle. We believe it to be cocaine, but we can't confirm that right now.
Residents say speeding is a problem at this intersection.
It's sad to hear. Honestly, this is a recurring problem along this street. The cars are just whizzing by. They speed through that stop sign.
I have a teenager girl and a small boy, and I'm scared to even take them on a bike rides.
Police say the accused is bound by a release order for an unrelated offense, but didn't reveal the charge. Police say their investigation is ongoing and they are continuing to appealing for witnesses, anyone with dash cam or surveillance video to come forward. Reporting live in Vaughan, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Time now for a check on the forecast. Here's a live look at the city. Partly sunny and humid. Feels like we're in the 30s with the humidex, but comfortable out there. There's a chance of thunderstorms, though, in some areas, so keep that in mind if you've got plans tonight. Jessica Smith is here to look at the current conditions, and looking at the water, things look fine.
It's nice in the downtown core, down by the lakeshore, beautiful. It's more so the GTA areas north of the city, east of the city, still contending with this messy weather. It is still prompting the likelihood of a pop-up shower before the day is all said and done, but the heavier showers really are anywhere kind of buried towards Bancroft and now out towards that borderline with Quebec. Now, we are still under a thunderstorm watch here in the city. We have the right conditions. We have warmer air at the surface, cooler air aloft, and wind shear, which is a change in wind speed and direction. So we have all those things that can make up the recipe for severe thunderstorm possibilities. Temperature-wise, Nathan is right. It is still very hot. Those humidex values into the mid-30s. Heading into this evening, though, it doesn't get much better, but at least the winds get a little bit lighter. Right now through the islands and Pearson between 21, 27. But tonight, that chance of active weather is going to linger. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast as we wrap up the short work and school week. But right now, back over to Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Jess. From water to roads, Toronto is facing a budgetary shortfall when it comes to maintaining its infrastructure. At
a council meeting today, city councilors were discussing how to best deal with the growing financial issue. CTV's Natalie Johnson is live tonight at City Hall with the very latest. Natalie.
Hi, Nathan. It is no secret that so much of Toronto's infrastructure is aging, and a recent review of the city's capital assets, everything from roads to bridges to buildings, found that 40% of them were in poor condition, and the cost here to maintain them is enormous. We're talking $40 billion with a B over the next 10 years. That is $26 billion more than the city expected.
The fountain in the middle of Mel Lastman Square paints the perfect picture of the city's infrastructure issues. When the water's on, it leaks down into the parking lot below. And so with no money to fix it, the city has turned off the taps.
It's a struggle. We can't keep up with the things that Torontonians expect, and we're unable to ever get out of that hole.
Not without help from the other levels of government. The city's staring down a $26 billion shortfall when it comes to maintaining its roads, bridges, buildings, and more. Nearly 40% of the city's capital assets graded as either poor or very poor.
This isn't a surprise. We have been pointing this out for years. We need a new deal for the city of Toronto.
This is the direct consequence of the penny-pinching budgets of the two previous mayors, who wouldn't invest in keeping our infrastructure in good repair.
The last two administrations starved the city of resources.
One of the city's most contentious infrastructure projects has also been added to the agenda. The 3-year construction on the Gardiner that has cut capacity between Dufferin and Strawn by 30% and tied up traffic like never before.
The idea that we are going to tie up a major artery like the Gardiner for 3+ years with no end in sight, that's unacceptable.
We should be getting that work done 24/7, give them the noise exemptions they need and get the job done.
Someone who previously lived in Asia, 24/7 is definitely something that should be normal. We have to find ways, obviously, to mitigate sound.
The mayor says the city is now working with the current contractor to develop a plan for expediting the work. And the contractor is testing the noise levels that would be created by overnight demolition.
It's not a repair work. Literally, you have to shore it up on one side so we can demolish the other side while using the gardener. That's really quite difficult.
Aging infrastructure that continues to cost money the city doesn't have. From gardener gridlock to the fountain that's dried up, like the capital budget.
And no one expected that the city's capital shortfall would be solved in a day here inside council chamber, but there was a unanimous resolution to improve prioritization of projects and seek more partnerships. The debate over accelerating the timeline for the Gardner construction will happen tomorrow. Reporting live in the chamber, I'm Natalie Johnson. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. Also out of City Hall today, a special tribute for Councillor Jay Robinson, who died last week after a long battle with cancer.
I mark a moment of silence to remember our friend and colleague, the late Councillor Jay Robinson.
A moment of silence was held in memory of the longtime Don Valley West councillor. Flowers and a framed photo were placed on her spot in the chamber, and her husband and 3 sons were in attendance as Robinson's colleagues remembered her for her dedication and service.
Was a good friend of mine. I remember that when she was here in the council chamber, she would always walk by me and say, "Can you please tell them to be quiet?" But my condolence goes out to the family, and she will be missed.
Robinson represented Don Valley West since she was first elected in 2010. She held several positions over the years, including TTC chair and chair of the Infrastructure Committee. She took a leave of absence in 2019 to undergo treatment for breast cancer. Robinson returned to work a year later, but mostly attended meetings virtually. She leaves behind her husband and 3 sons.
Still to come on CTV News tonight, after a dramatic rise in the number of shootings this year, Hamilton police are turning to the public for help, asking citizens to speak out to help stop the violence.
You might remember last November, the Indigo bookstore in Yorkville was the target of vandalism. Red paint splattered, posters of its CEO plastered on the storefront. Tensions over the Israel-Hamas war on full display.
Tonight, there are new developments, calls for charges to be dropped as the case winds its way through the legal system. CTV's Rahim Ladani has the latest.
Carl Gardner is one of 11 people who Toronto police charged 6 months ago for allegedly gluing posters and throwing red paint on an Indigo bookstore. Those charges have now been dropped.
I did lose all employment because of these allegations that were false and proven to be so.
In November of last year, 11 people were charged for allegedly participating in hate-motivated mischief. Officers executed no-knock search warrants to bring them into custody.
You're laying trumped-up charges that allow police to bust into our homes, to drag our reputations through the mud, and to brand us as hate criminals when we have not been charged with any hate crimes.
The Crown has now dropped the case against 4 of the individuals, while 7 others are still being prosecuted. The charges range from mischief and criminal harassment to conspiracy to commit an indictable act. The Crown Attorney's Office says this decision should not be seen as a criticism of the police determination that there were reasonable grounds for the arrests of these 4 individuals. However, the standard for proceeding with a prosecution is properly higher and more rigorous. Defense attorney Mike Leotold disagrees.
Based on the constitutional and legal frailties in the case against all of the accused, it would be my view that, in fact, there's no reasonable prospect of conviction in the case.
There has been an increase in hate-motivated crimes against the Jewish community since the war between Israel and Hamas began last October. However, Indigo Bookstore has a history of boycotts which spans before that, targeting its founder, Heather Reisman,
who made it her personal mission through her foundation, Chesed, to provide direct financial support to Canadian citizens to join the Israeli military.
Advocates insist posters that accuse Reisman of funding genocide are free speech.
As Jews, we say calling out companies that support Israeli war crimes is a legitimate form of protest. Targeting Indigo is not anti-Semitic.
The Crown Attorney says the alleged offenses have had a widespread impact on the community and that it is ready to move forward and set trial dates. Rahim Ladani, CTV News.
A man was rushed to hospital with critical injuries after an overnight shooting downtown. This happened shortly before 12:30 near Isabella and Sherbourne Streets. Police say responding officers found a man suffering from gunshot wounds in a laneway between two homes. He was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries. At this point, the motive is unclear. Witnesses describe hearing a commotion behind the building shortly before gunshots were fired.
Police in Hamilton are looking for the public's help after the number of shootings in that city more than doubled over the past year.
Among those incidents, a daylight gunfight that occurred just moments after kids walked through the scene. CTV's Sean Leithong reports.
There have been brazen daylight shootings, buildings indiscriminately shot under cover of darkness, and several suspects at large. Hamilton is experiencing a steep increase in gun violence.
At this point, we're running a record pace.
In 2024, there have been 22 shootings, more than double last year, and on pace to beat their record year in 2019. The most recent just this past weekend. 3 suspects seen fleeing after shooting an apartment building. In many of the shootings, police say they're encountering big obstacles to their investigation.
Too many instances of refusal to help us.
So they're appealing to the public for help. This video taken on May 13th shows a little girl walking down an alley in the area of Barton Street and Kinraid. Just moments before this shot was fired, the beginning of what police say was a daylight gunfight.
That vehicle that you see driving off in the laneway will then circle that particular block and then fire back.
In the neighborhood, many residents heard the shots.
We hear bang, 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 bang. And it's like, that doesn't sound like fireworks or anything like that.
There were no reported injuries in this incident, but with homes lining the alley, there is fear that someone could be hurt or killed.
Getting to where the neighborhood's no longer safe and it doesn't feel comfortable to live around anymore.
When it comes to the shooting that happened in this alleyway, police say they have received help from the public, and that is making all the difference. There are a number of cameras in the area, and police say the community here refused to put up with the violence.
By securing evidence at a scene, providing us with statements, offering video to a point where I'm confident down the road we are going to make some arrests.
Especially in cases like this would be the best time to tell the police so that they can get the best information to get those guns off the streets.
However, they say that other incidents have created some fear of retribution and
a bit of the street code coming into effect where it's just taboo to talk to police.
There have been 3 homicides this year, and a number of shootings have resulted in injuries, some of innocent bystanders. Hamilton police say anyone can anonymously help by calling the shooting response unit. Sean Leithong, CTV News.
The numbers say food inflation has been steadily cooling, but it appears many Canadians haven't noticed any improvement. In fact, a new Leger poll found almost 2/3 of respondents feel inflation at the grocery store is getting worse compared to a year or 2 ago. 29% blame an attempt by grocery chains to increase their profit margins. 26% believe global economic phenomena such as supply chain issues are responsible. And 20% say the federal government is to blame.
People have less money to spend on food, and they feel desperate, and so they're looking to blame something, someone. And the easiest thing to blame, the one component of the supply chain that most people understand is the grocery store. But food inflation is much more complicated than that. But I'm not surprised to see the anger, the collective anger from some people out there.
Inflation on groceries was 1.4% in April. The major grocers have said they did not profit from inflation.
Meanwhile, a new report from Canada's Food Bank suggests a quarter of all Canadians are facing food insecurity.
And it suggests almost half of Canadians feel worse off financially than they did last year. CTV's John Musselman has the details.
Officials at the Daily Bread Food Bank say demand has never been greater. Thousands of new clients arriving each month. They have jobs, but not enough money to pay the rent and afford groceries.
Unfortunately, are welcoming about 12 to 13,000 Torontonians who have never used a food bank before are coming to the food bank for the very first time on a monthly basis. We're growing at 3 to 5% here in the city of Toronto every single month. This past April, there were 311,000 client visits, up from about 60,000 pre-pandemic.
The bleak numbers match a report released today by Food Banks Canada. It works with 5,100 local food banks and community groups in all provinces and territories. Here's a look at the findings. 44% of people feel they are doing worse financially compared to last year, and 1 in 4 are experiencing food insecurity.
What stands out for me really is that behind all of these numbers are real people and real folks who are struggling to make ends meet like never before. Families with jobs that should be able to afford food to put on their table.
Food Banks Canada looked at the overall situation with poverty across the country, comparing the progress of every government. Here's a sample of the report card. The federal government was given a D-, Ontario a D-, Quebec a C+, Alberta D-, and British Columbia D+, and the Yukon inconclusive, not enough data.
Nova Scotia and PEI did manage to bring their scores up a bit, so I don't want to suggest that no one's taking action.
Food bank activists say federal and provincial governments need a coordinated poverty reduction plan. They claim there needs to be a greater sense of urgency to address this growing problem. John Musselman, CTV News.
Auto theft is a big concern across the GTA, and now new data shows Canada ranks among the world's top 10 countries for stolen vehicles so far this year. Interpol also says more than 200 stolen Canadian vehicles have been found each week across the globe since February, and a total of more than 1,500 vehicles have been identified. The International Law Enforcement Agency says that's due to the RCMP integrating Canada's database for stolen vehicles with that of its own. Interpol says thieves are attracted to Canada's abundant supply of coveted models such as SUVs and crossovers.
3 European countries announcing today they will recognize a Palestinian state.
Israel was quick to respond, calling it a reward for terrorism. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver has more on that and the worsening hunger crisis in Gaza.
Humanitarian aid groups in Gaza are issuing a dire warning. Supplies and personnel are running so low, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees has suspended food aid operations in Rafah.
So the situation is absolutely catastrophic. Children who are at the very brink of famine are now closer than they've probably ever been to this catastrophic situation.
The worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza comes more than 7 months since the war began, after Hamas attacked Israel, taking more than 200 hostages. Today, a heartbreaking new video shows the moments after 5 young women were taken hostage. Orly Gilboa's 19-year-old daughter, Daniela, is one of them.
It's not a very easy things to see your daughter in this terrified look.
The ongoing conflict and the devastation it's caused has prompted Spain, Norway, and Ireland to recognize a Palestinian state.
Our decision to recognize Palestine should not have to wait indefinitely, especially when it is the right thing to do.
Already, though, the decision has sparked swift condemnation from Israel, which has ordered the immediate recall of its ambassadors from those 3 countries.
Israel claims that this is a reward to Hamas. And I suggest that it is not a reward to Hamas, who has no interest in 2 states, has no interest in the continuation of Israel's existence. It's a reward to moderates in the Palestinian Authority.
The move comes after 143 countries voted in support of Palestinian membership at the United Nations, something only states are granted. Canada abstained from that vote.
Do you think that the Palestinian state should be recognized?
Canada has maintained its support for a 2-state solution where the Palestinian state is only recognized as part of a long-term political solution.
Canada's long-standing position has been to call for a 2-state solution. That's the path to lasting peace in the Middle East.
The recognition by the 3 European countries is historic but largely symbolic. Their formal declarations will happen next Tuesday. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
A funeral service was held today for Iran's president and 7 others killed in a helicopter crash on the weekend. Many traveled to Tehran from other parts of the country for the ceremony. Ibrahim Raisi was discussed as a possible successor to Iran's supreme leader. The country has set June 28th as the next presidential election. For now, there's no clear favorite for the position among the country's political elite.
The UK will go to the polls this summer. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak set a date today for a national election.
Now is the moment for Britain to choose its future.
to decide whether we want to build on the progress we have made or risk going back to square one with no plan and no certainty. Earlier today, I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament. The King has granted this request, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
The announcement ends months of speculation as to when Sunak would call an election. It could be a risky move with his party behind in the polls. The Conservatives have been in power for 14 years. The Tories and the opposition Labour Party have all but kicked off campaigning already, focusing largely on the economy and defense. In New York, an annual spectacle has begun on the Hudson River. The 36th edition of Fleet Week is kicking off with the traditional parade of ships. Nearly a dozen vessels are taking part in this year's event. Fleet Week is a celebration of maritime services. It offers the public a chance to meet members of the Navy, Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard, and tour the ships. About 3,000 military personnel will take part in the event over the next week.
There's new research tonight concerning that big star about 150 kilometers away from us. An international team says the sun's magnetic field originates much closer to the surface than previously thought. The finding could help predict periods of extreme solar storms like the ones that hit Earth earlier this month. They discovered the magnetic field appears to generate 32,000 kilometers beneath the surface. Previous theories put it at more than 209,000 kilometers.
So how was your commute home? Was it slow? Well, maybe one of these might come in handy. A flying car made its first public flight in Tokyo. It climbed to a height of about 10 meters, entertaining a crowd of spectators. The local government believes this may eventually catch on and be successful. It plans to build a landing and takeoff area on the site of a former market.
A potential new treatment for MS. A diabetes drug is being repurposed, offering new hope in the fight against the debilitating disease. Coming up, insight into the clinical trials here in Toronto.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, it's hard to believe it will soon be June and many families are planning their summer vacations. A new survey finds with the price of gas, food and lodging, many people will be staying closer to home this summer to try and save money. I'll have my reports. That's just ahead.
And no matter where you go today or tomorrow or into the end of the week, we're looking at a really high UV index. So if you're maybe heading out to cottage country, heading into the end of the week, you're going to need the sunscreen. Even into the day tomorrow, the UV index is high. So patio or beyond, temperature-wise, it'll be nice, but we still need to take care of ourselves. Coming up, a full look at your long-range forecast. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
A new survey looking at summer travel plans finds many people will be vacationing within Canada and not venturing too far from home.
Higher prices for food, gas, and lodging making more families consider a road trip rather than an out-of-the-country holiday. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Michelle and Nathan. A survey on summer travel finds more people are planning staycations, quick getaways, and road trips this summer. Instead of heading to the airport, families are more likely to pack up the car and spend their money supporting local tourism. In a country with long winters, the summer vacation is a staple for many Canadian families. And this year, a survey by Deloitte found that 74% plan to stay in Canada close to their home region. 65% are planning a summer road trip.
Canadians are intending to spend a bit more this year. They're still price sensitive, but they do intend to get out there and spend money.
A familiar theme is the great outdoors, with many hoping to take in nature and local attractions. Canadians will spend just over $2,400, but that's just for lodging and transportation. 35% won't be traveling at all because they can't afford it.
Definitely there's a percentage of Canadians that are not planning on traveling in a major way this year.
Another survey by Kayak, a travel search engine, found two of the top domestic destinations this summer will be Calgary and Edmonton. The website also says for Canadians who want to stretch their dollar outside of the country, searches for South and Central America have increased by more than 30%.
In the summer, we're seeing South and Central America travel prices down by 12 and 13% each. So it's definitely a place where you can go to get more value for your dollar.
Kayak says while Europe is still a favorite for Canadians, prices have increased over last year. Some tourists are bypassing the favorite cities of London and Paris to visit more affordable destinations.
Currently, we're seeing Rome, Lisbon, and Athens, as well as Amsterdam as the most popular destination.
According to the website, anyone planning a vacation should lock in their trip soon. Prices are considered low right now, but will continue to rise until the end of June. You'll usually pay a premium for trips booked in July and August. And the survey found many Canadians want to get out of urban centres and visit lakes, beaches, parks, and wilderness areas. They also want to visit small towns, which could be a boost for local tourism. I'm back. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, the heat is still on, enough of it that you could have visited a lake or a beach today and been very comfortable, although there's that threat of stormy weather, which is looming right now.
Yeah, you're right, though. When it is humid, it's nice to be by the water. It feels a bit more refreshing.
It makes a major difference. You know, if you're anywhere kind of down on the lakeshore or Queens Keys, and you should kind of pass over, you know, really the train tracks there, you feel the difference in temperature. That's just how vast it is. Now, as we make our way through the overnight, we do cool down a little bit, but we still have enough heat and humidity to wrap up our day that the chance of thunderstorms remains. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. Now, we've seen a ton of heat and humidity out there. Beautiful, though, to be out and down by the water. But with all this heat and humidity, it provides the perfect mix of things to create a pop-up thunderstorm. So just keep that in mind. We are likely in the clear here, at least in the downtown core, but a good portion of southern Ontario, eastern Ontario, still under that threat for severe weather, a little more intensely than we are here in the city and throughout the majority of the GTA. Still really warm there. We're at 27 here in the city. It feels like 34. Windsor feeling like 31, even up towards Timmins feeling like 30, and all this heat and humidity with the cold front passing through, bringing that threat of showers and the changeable winds has made that perfect mix for some potentially stormy weather. Tonight, the chance of rain is going to linger, although we're mostly cloudy here through the downtown core. 16 for the low. We should be at 11. Everybody holding on to the heat as we head into the evening, and that humidity isn't going anywhere. The winds dissipate, but the heat does not. Into the day tomorrow, much more seasonal. We'll sit around 25, still a high UV index at a 7, so sun protection still required. The bulk of this low is sitting in northern Ontario along with the border of Manitoba, but it stretches so far that it reaches Quebec. So this is kind of a wide sweeping system. The tail end of it is kind of what we're going to deal with as we wrap up our day today. But for the most part, the eye of the storm is nowhere near us, but the kind of trough extending off of it is what we've been contending with. As we head through the rest of our evening, the threat of showers pushes out through our Thursday. Throughout the day, sunny start to finish, a few light clouds, a nice light breeze. Into our Friday, almost an identical forecast. It's not until Friday evening that we watch for the next round of showers to push their way through. Temperature-wise, again, we should be around 21 for the high, 11 for the low, so we're not far from that, and it's easier to manage the heat over the next few days. As we get into Saturday, there's that chance of showers, not an all-day affair. And as we get into Sunday, picture-perfect way to wrap up the weekend. Heading into the beginning of next week, I'm not going to call it a cool down. It's just a return to more seasonal weather because you factor in the humidex that we still have, and it'll feel close to 21. Chance of showers Monday, then a little cloud cover the rest of the week, but tiptoeing into the end of the month as we step into the meteorological start of the summer season in June. Nathan, on the 1st, it's not too bad.
All right, good to know. Thank you, Jess. Also tonight, turning up the heat at Queen's Park to keep workers cool. The opposition wants heat stress to be considered a workplace hazard. Is it really a thing? Details and reaction coming up. An old standard in the treatment of type 2 diabetes is being repurposed as a possible new treatment for multiple sclerosis.
We'll get the details from our health reporter, Pauline Chan.
Metformin was developed some 60 years ago to treat type 2 diabetes, and it's been proven to be safe, but scientists noticed another effect of the drug.
If you exposed neural stem cells to metformin, they would start making new cells, they would make new oligodendrocytes, which are the myelinating cells of the brain, make new neurons.
And that's the premise that started Professor Cindy Moorehead thinking about metformin to treat multiple sclerosis.
So MS is considered an autoimmune disease. So the exact mechanism is really just the loss of the myelin that surrounds the axons in the brain. and in the spinal cord. And so then the cells can't conduct their signals.
Myelin is the fatty sheath around the arms of nerve cells. Without it, the neurons degenerate.
With MS, it affects people so differently. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of disease. So many people have various symptoms. For me, it started initially in my legs, and I was having trouble walking.
Mark Gonzalez was diagnosed with MS 2 years ago and is on a medication that stops his immune system from attacking his body.
The only consequence of that, though, is that without B cells, it's very easy to get sick, and you don't have that defense system.
The researchers hope that early use of metformin will protect neural cells.
That's why the trial is being run in young patients, to prevent further damage.
So far, through Sick Kids Hospital, they've recruited about 15 of the 30 young adults needed to test metformin for MS in clinical trials. And Gonzalez says he'll be watching their results with interest and hope. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
It was another hot day outside, especially for those who work in conditions where the temperature can rise.
Tonight, the provincial opposition is calling for more protections for workers who find themselves feeling the heat. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Vaughan Morris has the story.
Not quite summer, but already the sun is baking Ontario, making for some sometimes sizzling working conditions on the street and off.
We need better protections for workers from heat stress as Ontario faces more climate change-driven extreme heat events.
New Democrats, the Ontario Federation of Labour and workers want the government to do more to make sure workers are kept cool.
The time for action is now.
Whether they earn their paychecks in schools,
the heat drains them of their energy, making tasks such as cleaning, lifting, and moving equipment even more exhausting.
Or work in the shop.
I'm wearing heavy leathers, the mask, gloves, and sometimes I can only stand there for maybe 10 minutes. And I have to stop and peel that all off.
All that gear can speed up the effects of heat stress on the body. Critics say that cranking up the AC, if you have it, is not an adequate plan.
You'd be amazed at how many times I've heard from schools that not only is it swelteringly hot, but the water fountains are also turned off because they didn't pass the water testing.
The NDP will look at what other jurisdictions have done to inform a bill they'll present this fall.
Making sure that there's cold water available, there are more breaks, there's shade, and where, frankly, you've got an indoor space and you can air condition, then making sure you have an engineering solution that reduces or eliminates risk.
There's an acknowledgement these solutions will cost more.
There also is a cost when workers cannot work, when workers are needing to go home. We've seen lives lost.
A spokesperson for the Minister of Labour says employers have a duty to keep work environments safe, including in high heat. She says the ministry does thousands of proactive inspections each year, but that workers should report something if they think rules are being broken. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
After the break, we get the inside scoop on the upcoming Inside Out Film Festival. Canada's largest screen showcase celebrating all things queer returns.
The clearings is not a strategy that works. It removes people from one place and to go where.
Updating our top stories, the City of Toronto has released an updated strategy to deal with homeless encampments in public spaces in places like parks. Recommending removal should not be a priority, with a focus instead on more supports and services to help those in need.
We heard some noise. Me and my daughter came out, and there was a bike crumbled up, lying over there. There was a boy, paramedics came, they were getting CPR over there. All the debris of the bike and the car were all the way up to the stop sign.
A 16-year-old boy is dead after a crash involving a mini bike and a vehicle in Vaughan. It happened at around 10:45 last night. Police say the driver of the vehicle left the scene and was arrested a short time later. A 24-year-old man is facing a number of charges.
That vehicle that you see driving off in the laneway will then circle that particular block and then fire back.
And police in Hamilton are asking for the public's help after the number of shootings more than doubled over the past year. Among the incidents, a daylight gunfight that happened just minutes after children left the area. Police are hoping witnesses will come forward with information that could help find those responsible.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca, and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video of breaking news, let us know.
Microchip maker NVIDIA revealed its quarterly financial report today, and the numbers are telling us a lot about the state of the current AI boom. Amber Kamwar, Abinam Blueberg has more.
It's not every day you see a company already worth more than $2 trillion grow sales by more than 240%. But that's exactly what semiconductor giant NVIDIA delivered in its latest set of results. It makes some of the most in-demand chips that are used to power the next wave of artificial intelligence. As companies like Facebook and Google race to have the best products AI has to offer, they've been gobbling up chips from NVIDIA to power the technology. And it seems there's no signs that their appetite is dwindling. NVIDIA says that sales in the upcoming quarter would double. Now let's take a look at the closing market numbers. We've got the Canadian dollar down modestly, around 73 cents US. U.S. oil prices slipped below $78 per barrel. Canadian energy prices also declined below $67 per barrel. And it was a down day on the TSX, shedding 121 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Amber Kamwar in the BNN Bloomberg Newsroom.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Well, Sheldon Keefe didn't stay unemployed for long. There are reports tonight Keefe will be announced as the next head coach of the New Jersey Devils tomorrow. Keefe was fired less than a week after the Toronto Maple Leafs lost their first-round playoff series. He will be the 18th head coach in New Jersey's history as the team continues its pursuit of its first Stanley Cup since 2003.
For 34 years, the Inside Out Festival has been telling the stories of the LGBTQ2S+ community.
And as it returns for another year, CTV's Andrea Case discovered there is no shortage of stories to tell.
The Inside Out 2S LGBTQ+ Film Festival is days away from opening night. Now in its 34th year, co-head and artistic director Andrew Murphy says there are 106 full-length films and shorts and a number of TV shows to take in.
You should see what we didn't take. So, I mean, we consider probably about 900 titles over the course of the year. So that is solicited and unsolicited materials through submission sites and as well as things that we see at other festivals. And then we do our best to track alumni and that. And, we're really proud of, developing our alumni program over the years. So it's always nice when people come back with their next film.
The opening night's film is Amazon and MGM Studios' My Old Ass. It premiered at the Sundance Film Festival and stars Aubrey Plaza.
It was shot here in Muskoka area last year. And it is this wonderful story of a teenager at the end of the summer is at a campfire, drops some mushrooms with her friends, and her older self suddenly appears by the campfire. And she communicates with her over, the next number of days. And it's a really special film, and it's funny as heck. And it's the second feature from Megan Park, who is Canadian.
Murphy's proud of Inside Out's 3-decade-plus long run and the variety and diversity of the lineup.
We see that festivals, there are moments of struggle for certain festivals and certain audiences, but, for a specialty festival like ours, the audience is there, and we're here to support our communities.
You can screen many of the festival's offerings in the comfort of your own home, but there's nothing like being in a community, in a crowd to watch a film. And you can watch the Inside Out 2S LGBTQ+ Festival's offering right here at TIFF Lightbox, Friday until January 1st. January 1st, make that June 1st. Andrea Case, CTV News.
Canada's largest documentary festival is temporarily closing its theater here in the city. The beleaguered Hot Docs Festival says financial constraints have forced the company to close its flagship theater for 3 months and lay off staff. The festival has been warning the public of its financial situation since April and has been looking for more financial support. Organizers of the festival said they'll use the temporary closure to regroup and come up with a strategy to deal with the crisis. The doors of the Hot Docs Ted Rogers Cinema will close on June 12th.
Tonight, London Drugs refusing to pay millions in ransom.
They have posted stuff before. They have also lied through their teeth about what data they have. They're criminals.
Sophisticated hackers threaten to release stolen employee data. That's later on CTV National News.
Barbie is 65 this year and is marking the milestone by honoring some of the greatest female athletes. Canadian soccer star Christine Sinclair is among 9 trailblazing women being honored with their very own Barbie. She joins tennis champion Venus Williams, boxer Estelle Mosley, and gymnast Alexa Moreno.
That's me, my face. If you've got they got the headband, okay. Obviously, Sinclair. They got the gold medal, most important, right? High socks, because the cool kids wear high socks. And then my little Nike shoes. They're so cute. No, it's insane. That's what I mean. Like when I first saw it, I was like, holy moly, that's me.
And you can hear more from Sinclair tomorrow morning on CP24 Breakfast. Something to look forward to. Congrats to her.
I know. The only thing that would make that better is if they were available for purchase. They're one of a kind. I'd love to buy one.
I was talking about that earlier. I'm like, it'd be so cool to have some of these signature Barbies. Maybe one day. Today is the kind of day where if you were inside, maybe a bit better because there was air conditioning. Unless you like the heat, some folks like the humidity. I'm one of them, but you have to enjoy it safely. As we head in towards the rest of our evening, still the risk of maybe a pop-up shower or thunderstorm, but the heavier activity definitely areas towards Bancroft and along that border with Quebec. So something to keep in mind if you're traveling anywhere this evening. Humidity is still very much a factor for the kids tomorrow. Extra water, extra sunscreen, a good idea to add in. And then as we head in towards really the end of the week and the weekend, despite a little shower activity, we start to trend a little closer to seasonal.
Interesting. Thank you, Jess. That's it for us, but be sure to join Todd Vanderhayden tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a great night.